99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network and the operators of this radio
It's
station.
Love Jones. It's Love Jones. Check us out as we combine our hit music with a love story. Live with Candy. It's Love Jones.
Call in and participate at 326-0271 on Global Radio 99.5 FM.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Refugee Camp presents
For all relationships, for regrets, for disagreements, for breaking up and making up, for all those out there jonesing for love, it's Love Jones right here, right now on Global 99.5. Good morning. Happy Tuesday to everybody out there. This is the very best mix of R&B music home of the Steve Harvey Morning Show. We're Global 99.5. Welcome to a brand new edition of Love Jones. And a part of our Tuesday regiments, we've got Alexis Bethel.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Always a pleasure to have Mademoiselle in the studio. Before I do anything and we get into our conversation for today, let me go ahead and dole out our numbers. That's 431-8497 is text and WhatsApp. You may also use the alternative of 812-1787. Of course, we're live on Facebook, so you may watch us as well as on Global 99 FM. You can watch us there as well. And of course, on each respective page, Love Jones, as well as perhaps Studio Ahana, we will have the video so that you can watch and enjoy it a little bit later on and learn whatever lessons there are to be had. You can also call in live at 326-0272 or 1. And finally, write in at verycoldcandy at Yahoo or lovejonescrew at Gmail. Well, we always have such very interesting conversations that tend to leave an indelible mark. We get such great feedback every time that you're in studio. Mm-hmm. And, my motto for this year is thought-provoking conversation. Mm-hmm. Even if at the very moment you don't feel as if the time is appropriate or the conversation may not be relevant to something that's happening at that moment, mm-hmm. it still provokes a real conversation with yourself, mm-hmm. others in your life, and it causes you to really reflect and perhaps do some introspection. And that's what the goal is for these kinds of conversations. Ooh, we've already covered so much off air.
I know. I was going to say, we got to leave something for the show here.
I'm not sure exactly, what we want to get into, but I know that I did speak to you about, you guys have such wonderful events that you have at the studio. And I always say that I absolutely must be a part of it. And then something goes awry, but I know that one that's for me, nothing will be able to keep me away from it. So I'm waiting anxiously. So I know one of the things that you guys had posted that I was most interested in, even though I didn't have an opportunity to be a part of it, I'm hoping that you can share perhaps a little bit of the event, or perhaps something personal, or perhaps just some insight that you collected while at it. And it had a lot to do with, what was it?
So in this most recent one that we had about a week ago, Tina Klanaris was talking about transforming pain into purpose, mm-hmm. Which I think is a topic, at one point or another in our lives. And like you said, it doesn't always have to be immediate, mm-hmm. right? But at some point in our lives, we're going to experience pain, whether it's a trauma, whether it's a death, whether it's something maybe more subtle. I think it's something that everybody can relate to or kind of understands that's a possibility. Mm-hmm. So in this last one, it was really amazing. And Tina, who is an author and speaks all over the world on this very topic, was sweet enough to come to Goddess Circle and share with the women there on her experience, which was, unfortunately, after she had gotten pregnant, her doctor had given her a medication that caused her to not to miscarry, but actually to, I believe her child was stillborn or died very shortly after birth. Tina almost died, almost bled out,
Yeah.
all because of, a medical issue, being given the wrong medication. And, she talked a lot about how she transformed that into purpose, because I think that, when something very traumatic happens to people in life, most people go one of two ways. We either sit in it and dwell in it and kind of, for lack of a better word, we allow our hearts to harden.
Yes.
And we see the world through very cynical or angry eyes. Or we choose to take it as an opportunity for growth, which is not an easy thing, especially when you're in the muck of it. And so she really talked about that experience, and I was really moved. And one thing that we always do in Goddess Circle is, after whoever's leading it, whether it's me, whether it's whatever, we always open it to discussion, and we just give people the opportunity to share should they want to. And some of the stories that came out were just really beautiful and really incredible, about things like loss, things like that. But what I took away first and foremost, because you think going into it and hearing something like that, and she had told us at a previous Goddess Circle when she had just been part of the audience and had shared that she lost a daughter. I mean, you think about that being kind of the worst thing that could happen to you is losing a child, right? I think that a lot of people would say that's pretty much
At the top
at the top of their list of fears. And so, I was going into the conversation thinking, okay, this is probably going to be pretty heavy and all these things, but it was actually beautiful and uplifting. And the biggest thing for me that I took away was, when these things happen, we talked about this a few weeks ago or a couple months ago on this show, was we have to allow ourselves to be in what's happening. We can't rush through it. We can't go over it. We can't, sideswipe it. We have to go through it.
Yes.
But there also comes a point when we have to make a decision of how we're going to handle it, which of those two ways we're going to go. And the biggest thing that I took away from the talk was less just about loss and more about this idea that everything that happens in our life, as painful as it is an opportunity to learn something if we're willing to allow it to be. And so she talked about, for her personally, that losing her daughter, and there were all these kind of signs and things she kind of put together afterwards, and she was like, wow, this was coming. But before she even gave birth, she was like asking her child, what are you meant to teach me? What are you meant to teach me? What are you meant to teach me? And through all of this, she was like, what I was meant to learn was to use my voice. I was never using my voice. I had gotten into this life that wasn't about me. I was just socializing, and I had fallen asleep. She's like, I had died inside. And what this taught me was that I needed to be reawakened, that I needed to start living my life again and living it for me, and since she's become an author and a painter and all of these amazing things, that she said, if I hadn't had that experience with my daughter, it never would have happened. I would have walked through my life, and that would have been it. And so I think that to see somebody coming out of something like that, and for that to be their perspective, is just incredible. And you realize that somebody that's gone through that deep of a trauma could come out on the other side speaking for what's possible, and just showing how resilient we are as human beings. It just really kind of wakes you up to the conversation of, where am I asleep? Where am I not learning the lessons that life is trying to teach me? Where am I not listening in my life? Whether it's from a trauma or whether it's just because you're sleepwalking through life. And I think a lot of us are.
I agree. The interesting part about that as well, I think a lot of us, people that have such great things to share, we remain silent.
Yep.
And through sharing, a lot of times, I think that is one of the grandest ways that we can heal, by sharing and perhaps assisting someone in avoiding the mistakes that we've made, but even better still, them learning lessons for what you've already gone through. You know what I mean? And so many times, I think we believe that you have to be an author, or you have to be, a preacher, a pastor, or you have to be, someone that's in the public eye in order to share things that are going to be a benefit to humans. And that's so not the case.
So not the case.
you know, and I just wish we as people could get more into the spirit of, and I'm not saying go on a soapbox and tell all your business, right?
Sure.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying when a lot of times the universe whispers to you when things are to be what they are, when the appropriate time is, and we're stubborn, we say no, and
Yeah.
we're not obedient to those voices. And a lot of times through those things, we miss opportunities to not just heal ourselves, but help somebody else. You know, so I'm always very respectful of people that are bold enough,
Yeah.
you know, or brave enough at the time to share something for someone else. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
And paying into purpose, like you said, that is no easy task.
And I think, you know, I think that one of the other things that stood out for me and that she was saying as well is, you know, a lot of times things will happen in our lives that force us to wake up, right? And we don't see it as that. We see it as things happening to us,
Right.
which I think is a very natural human viewpoint,
Absolutely.
right? But rarely do we spin it on its head and say, wait, is this actually something that's trying to force me awake? But, you know, it gets back to the conversation of, do we have to get to that place before we're willing to wake up? Because, I mean, 95% of the people that I know, and this is not a judgment, I used to sleepwalk through life, are sleepwalking through life. And does it have to take something that drastic to force your eyes open?
Unfortunately, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that, but the truth of the matter, it is. Most of us, here's the problem. Most of us are not aware that
Yeah.
we're sleepwalking. As far as we're concerned, we are living La Vida Loca, darling.
Yeah.
We are we're traveling a couple of places, you know, we're doing big business in our jobs, you know, we're working towards this home, and, you know, we've got a great social circle, and, you know, we're pretty, what's the problem? We're living here. What's going on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we don't get it. Just because you're living in your mind, unfortunately, a lot of times you still are only existing in the bare minimals of what it is to be alive.
And what's possible.
Absolutely. You know, sometimes it's so much more than, and like I said, you know, for me, it's always that conversation of what is success, you know, and for a lot of people, they give you the atypical answers of, you know, and it's always rooted towards stuff and, you know, unfortunately, monetary gain and those kinds of things, or fame or fortune, something along those lines.
Right.
And a lot of people don't seem to understand that, you know, one of the true markers of success, at least for me, is to know that I've left a footprint in someone, and it only has to be one person's life.
Yeah.
If you've made a difference in that, or you've chosen to make a difference within your own life, I think that within itself is a success.
Of course.
You've been successful. You know, so I think a lot of it has to do with perspective. And like you said, it's a choice
Yeah.
of what you'll do with this pain.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things that I wanted to get into with you is, interestingly enough, and I think it ties right into that, and it always freaks me out when that happens. We talk about something and then I look on the list of things that I've written and it ties in, and I always look twice, like, did I tell you about it? I don't think I shared it. Like, what is that? And it says bringing forth change in your life and breaking out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
How does one go about that? How do you even know that you're like in a comfort zone? How do you know how do you know the difference between stuck in this like irrational comfort zone and contentment? Because we get the two
Yeah.
confused, right? And it's really, I was thinking about it. I'm like, wow, there's such a fine line
Yeah.
between being okay with who you are, being contented in your life situation and those around you, and getting stuck in this comfort zone
Yeah.
of what is normality, but you could be doing so much more to be good with yourself, and you're
Yeah.
just not.
It's interesting, as you were saying that, I'm, you know, all these things are kind of going through my head, and, you know, the first question that came to my head was, do you feel like there must be something more in life? Now, that can also be a slippery slope because, right? Because if you're like me, I'm an eternal seeker. I will be a seeker for the rest
That's
of my
okay,
life.
right,
Now, what
right.
I've learned through yoga and through getting so involved in my yoga practices, I need to seek within myself, not outside of myself. And that was what I did for the first 26 years of my life. It was always, if I get this, if I do this, if I find this, then I'll be happy.
Right.
Right. And now it's actually coming into myself. So it's a very different seeking nonetheless. And so I think maybe a better question to ask would be, are you fulfilled? I think if I was to ask that, I mean, you can lie to yourself. You can have a conversation with yourself and like, I think I'm fulfilled, but am I fulfilled? Well, I don't know. I'm probably fulfilled.
You always know better. Yeah.
But right? Like, you're only having the conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that if you can say, I'm actually fulfilled in what I'm doing. I'm going to give you an example. And I hope my husband doesn't kill me, but I'm one of those people that I seek, I want to see fundamental change in this world. And I won't stop until that happens. That's who I am. I was born like that. Like, there's no changing that. My husband is somebody who, he likes a challenge at work. He likes to like go into businesses, see what's not working, increase efficiency and blah, blah, blah. Comes home and that's a great day for him. That fulfills him.
Right.
That makes him happy. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not right or not wrong. Like, none of it is better than the other. But if you asked us both, are you fulfilled? The answer would be yes. And what we need to do to be fulfilled is incredibly different.
Yeah.
And so it's not about having to, have this grandiose dream or write a book to be fulfilled. For some people, it might be. But if you ask yourself the question, some deep level of you already knows the answer. And if the answer is no, then I'd say you're in your comfort zone.
Right. Because I think a lot of times it's dictated, unfortunately, by other things. Like I said, we see people that are writing books and that are making poignant speeches and, that have these wondrous dreams. Perhaps like yourself, they have either, like, I know some people that have this incredible wanderlust, and then, other people, they want to make, if it's just the smallest change of the way that people treat each other, the way that children don't have to be hungry. It's so many different things and respects of what that is to make a differential change within the world. But we have to realize our biggest mistake in that, I think, is comparing yourself to other people.
100%.
That's the big deal. Because if you were someone that compared, and like you said, he goes to work and he feels good about that, that's his passion. That's what he enjoys. And if he's done that, he feels great about the success that he's had during the day. And you're totally spinning on a different axis, and yet it works. Because there is a respect, which is what lacks a lot of times in what makes you tick is different from what makes me tick, but I love and appreciate the things that make you move.
100%.
And we balance each other. So I think the success in that is not comparing yourself to someone else, and the passions that they have may be, like you said, quite grandiose in the scale of things. And then for you, very simply, you're comfortable of being the PTA. You make a difference within your kids' school. You're providing lunches for some children that may not eat within the school. And that's a big deal for you. And you've made a difference. And that's okay.
It's perfect. Maybe you're a mom and you stay at home and your passion is to raise children who are upstanding citizens and
they're going to make other differences in the world. Right.
Perfect. Right. I think it's not about, I think the comparison game, I think it's dangerous regardless, but I also think that it can be an indicator, right, to the things that we want. So for instance, I could compare myself and be like, well, I'm not making $2 million a year as an investment banker. And, I went to school for that stuff. I could be doing that. I could be comparing myself, but if you were to put me in that role and put me as this investment banker who's making all this money, I wouldn't be happy. That's not what makes my heart happy. Now, if I compared myself to somebody who's, writing books on personal development and doing TED Talks, that might bring something up in me because I want to do that, right? So that's an indicator actually of truly what I want. Now, the comparison game is still a dangerous thing. Who knows that person's circumstances, how they got there, when they got there, how long it took. Is that my path? I don't know, right? But comparison can be an indicator. So I think it's looking at, if you're comparing yourself to somebody else, is it just because they have a thing like money and you want that? Would you be happy in their shoes? Probably not. If there's something else that they have that really truly makes your heart sing, then let it be an indicator that you really want and go for it, but then drop the comparison of how,
Exactly.
when, why they got there.
Right. Just look at it as a possible, well, if this person can, then perhaps I can as well.
Yeah.
So instead of the comparative,
Mhm.
just look at it and use it as, a way to drive yourself into pushing. Because if someone on the same
100%.
human scale as I can do it,
Yeah.
then it can be done. Let me
Yeah.
go for that. So it's what we how we choose to go about things a lot of times that gets us into trouble.
Yeah, 100%. One of my, I was working with a marketing coach about a year and a half ago, and we were part of this coaching company, and we were on a leaders call, and she said, I saw this couple sitting there on the bench holding hands. It was probably like a second date couple, and they're all lovey-dovey and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, and I was just getting so like, it was just riling something up in me. And she said, and then I stopped and I took a breath and I said, thank you for showing me what's possible.
Mhm.
And I think that that's such a more empowered place to come from when we see something that somebody else has. Thank you for showing me it's possible, right? Making that really simple switch in your mind from you have that, why don't I, how can I
Yes.
get it?
Yeah.
To thank you for showing me what's possible.
Because it's
Right.
the difference between, seeking what makes you happy and getting to that place of being hardened because you
Yeah.
feel as if you've been robbed and,
Of course.
all of that stuff. I've put my work in and I've done this and that. So why is it that it comes so easily to this person and I don't have it? You really can get to a really nasty place,
Mhm.
a bitter space.
Mhm.
And, the thing is, it's not going to help you get to where you want to be any sooner.
And not at all, right? I mean, if you think about it as us having kind of this like finite amount of energy, yes, we can sleep better and get more energy, but how are you ever going to have the energy to expend to, attain your own goals if you're putting all this negative energy of anger and frustration and resentment on top of it? How is that ever going to create the energy you need to create what you want? It's just not.
It's not possible. So an interesting question came in and I made note of it. If you're just now tuning in, though, this is Love Jones on Global 99.5. Alexis is in studios. And, this is usually the day that, we seek comfort in our conversation and we tend to go all over the place and it usually drives home to one particular message, but it's always there for your taking or your leaving. But I can guarantee if you choose to, there's going to be something interesting to be gathered from the conversation. And someone asked, how do you identify poisonous things in people in your life? Even if it's in your inner circle, and how do you garner the strength to weed those people and things out?
So first thing,
That's heavy, right?
first thing that comes to my mind is if you're asking that question, you've already identified them,
yeah.
right? Like we have all the answers we need.
Mhm.
Sometimes we need permission or validation or
Reinforcement
support
of
or
sorts.
reinforcement, sure. But if you're asking that question, you already know. And that little thing that's kind of like, how do I, like, that's your intuition,
Mhm.
right? That's your gut, whatever you want to call it. And I think that, so in terms of identifying, my guess would be, and of course not knowing any more than anything that you just said. So my guess would be that the identification piece is kind of done.
Mhm.
The second piece was how to weed them out. Was
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
the second part of the question?
How to because I think with having a conversation with this particular person, when there was like, I would love to know how you guys would answer that on the basis in which we talk. The thing is, I think for this person, they have identified, who's causing some issues within. But honestly, some people don't know.
Yeah.
Some people are oblivious to,
Which is tough.
the poisonous things that exist within their life. And unfortunately, they tend to grip and they spread poison
Yep.
throughout. So I guess we could address now that this person has said, how do I, yeah, you know who it is, and you know some of the issues that have caused and continue to happen. But also if we can address for those people that may not be as aware or as present, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, there are certain situations that continue to happen.
Yeah.
And it's always linked to particular people. So how do you deal with those kinds of situations?
Yeah. That's a tough one. And I've had these people and these situations in my life before, and I've had to cut them out. I don't know if it's because I'm a Leo. They say it's a Leo trait. But I meet people and I know I don't have to know why I know. It's not like, manifesting a certain part of my body or my mind. And if people are like, okay, but why, I wouldn't even have a good answer. It's just a feeling. It's just there. Right. The hard thing about being in that place is a lot of people either don't see it or don't want to see it in that same person. So I get it, what it feels like to feel like either you're defending yourself when there's drama against somebody who is constantly trying to manipulate the situation and cause drama.
Right.
And just feeling like nobody else sees it. And you want to like shake people,
Yeah.
And be like, how do you not see what's going on? Right.
Right.
It's infuriating, but everybody is where they are. We can't force it on other people. And the truth of the matter, the very hard thing I think to stomach is that we also can't stoop to that person's level. Like, the obvious thing to do would be to manipulate back and to try to sway people's opinions or talk negatively about somebody. But the truth of the matter, and what I've found, and I know that this is kind of maybe a hard thing to stomach in the short term, is that these people always identify themselves sooner or later. It happens every time. Now, sometimes it's later, which is an incredibly infuriating place to be.
Absolutely.
It is an incredibly infuriating place to be. But I have never been in a situation like that where, and I'm not sitting up here saying I'm perfect. I've done not so great things in my life, but when I have been, taken the high road, so to speak, I have never lost in the long run. Now, I think that when you're talking about people who don't see it, it's all about where people are coming from. So let me give you an example. I'm trying to think of a good example. Say that I was to say about somebody, yeah, she's good at what she does, but I just don't really like that she does this and that and blah, 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 and the way she talks about this and that. But it's fine. That's just my opinion.
Right.
I'm still trying to get you to see somebody a certain way.
Absolutely.
Right? It might be in a really nice kind of way that I'm cushioning it, but I'm trying to manipulate what you think
And
about
how you
somebody
see
else.
someone else.
If you hear somebody talking about somebody else in that way, or trying to throw somebody under the bus, sometimes the thing about it is the best manipulators are the subtle ones. When people are obvious, you're just like, oh my God, drama queen or drama king or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
It's the people that are trying to get you to see things the way that they see it, and not things like in the world, not having a conversation about, poverty or whatever else, but trying to get you to see a certain person. And it's all about how they're saying it. People are entitled to their opinions of other people and saying, look, this person did X, Y, Z, and it really hurt me. That's one thing. But if you're trying to kind of bookend, so to speak, all like saying bad things about people, but putting on the front, well, it's just my opinion. And then on the end, but it's fine. Think what you want. You're still being manipulated.
Absolutely.
And so, I think just be wary of that. Be wary. Are people trying to get you to think something about somebody else? And if they are, is it really for your best interest? Are they trying to get you to see that maybe you're in a relationship that doesn't serve you? That's one thing. Or are they trying to get you not to like this person that maybe you do like, or you're not that close with, right?
Because they have had an issue with them
because
personally.
they have an issue with them.
Right.
It's really about, are they trying to, when people are talking about or saying things about other people, are they doing it in your best interest, or are they doing it in their best interest? And if they're doing it in their best interest, watch out for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I think it's fine to say such and such happened and that hurt me.
Mhm.
That way you can understand why I feel the way that I feel,
Sure.
but obviously I still respect how you feel and whatever your relationship is with X,
Mhm.
Y, or Z.
Yeah.
I think there's a vast difference between that and someone riddling off all of these character flaws and all of these
Sure.
issues with someone else. So it's just a matter of fact of identifying and not falling prey
Yeah.
to those kinds of things, because very quickly that conversation happens, and before you know it, you're chiming in about
Yeah.
something that you were nowhere near for.
Mhm.
You have no idea the specifics to it, and now you're a part of this story
Mhm.
that you're writing, and you weren't present for the most important parts of it.
You know, and I hear, especially here all the time, I'm not saying it doesn't go on other places, but when you live on an island
Mm,
and you're in close quarters and
Yeah.
all these things, right? And I hear all the time people say, I'm so tired of, people talking crap. I'm so tired of hearing all this gossip. I'm so tired of it. And, the first thing I kind of say is like, I totally get it. And I'm just asking an honest reflection. Do you
are you
play a
of
part
that?
in it?
Absolutely.
Right? We have to be willing to look at ourselves. And again, I'm not perfect. Like there have been a couple of times that like I've said things, not like super mean things about people, but also things that I'm just like, well, would I say it to them? Because if I wouldn't, then why am I saying
Yeah.
it? Right. And so I think that we all have to kind of, shine the light back on ourselves and say, yeah, I'm upset about this situation, but am I playing into it?
Yeah, old people have a saying. My grandmother used to say, be careful, because a lot of times when people bring stuff, they'll take it too. So if someone's going to come to you with all this chitter chatting about someone else,
Yep.
more than likely they'll wait for you to chitter chatter and then they'll take it to that person back.
Mhm.
So, it's just stuff, very small stuff, I think, that we can make changes with that can make a big difference in our lives and our overall happiness if we just change the way that we go about things. And if we're willing to always, regardless of what happens, we can look back at ourselves and say, wow, okay, I really didn't need to say that, or I really didn't have to do that, and start to make those changes, because we realize it and then we do it again and again and again and again and
Yeah.
again. And we commit to these patterns and we get stuck in those very particular comfort zones of negative behavior, and we can't move past those things.
And then we wonder why there's so much negativity around us.
Yes, and we keep saying, where's it coming from? Hello, a big part of it is coming from yourself, right? Yeah. So I've been guilty of that before. Just complaining about certain things, and then I continue to do the same things that cause the same result. And so it's like, how can you expect something different when you continue to do the same things over and over because of that sense of comfort and not wanting to change or do something different?
And what you'll find, and what I've found, and again, I never want to sit up here and say I'm perfect. I have my slips, but is that I've stopped talking about people, getting into people's business. If you want to tell me your business, great. If you want to tell me somebody else's business, I don't want to hear it. I'm done, right? And what I found is people stop coming to me with that stuff. They come to me with their problems.
Yes.
People confide in me, but they don't come to me talking about other people, because I'm not
They know
rude about it.
you're
I'm
not
not like,
listening
stop
there.
talking, but they know I'm just not going to engage.
Right.
And, I think there's that quote, and I can't remember it fully, and everyone's probably heard it, but it's that idea, small people talk about people, great or small minds talk about people, whatever, bigger minds talk about things, and great minds talk about ideas.
Yes.
Right. And I'm really only interested in things and ideas. I'm not interested in talking about people. And you'll find that people stop bringing it to you. And that entire source of negativity starts to lift its way out of your life. But you have to be conscious about it. You have to be on top of it, and you have to be willing to stop. And sometimes the problem is people have fun talking about other people in their lives. And until and unless you're willing to disengage in that conversation, you can't expect it to be reciprocated.
Agreed. That's a good lesson for the day. Love Jones, right here on Global 99.5, 431-8497, 812-1787. Alexis is in, Candy sitting in. And we're just talking about some subtle ways that you can change to bring, positivity in your life, alleviate negativity. And sometimes, unfortunately, that comes in the form of people that once was presumably very close to you, but regardless of religion, spirituality, race, gender, all of that, I firmly believe that you know, people serve different purposes in your life, and sometimes that is just for but a season. And, you know, we have a habit as human beings, we want to hold on, you know, especially if it's a positive experience. We want that person to be around and stay around. And unfortunately, do you remember that show, The Littlest Hobo? Have you ever seen that? Listen to me.
I don't think so.
I saw reruns of it, and it was this, I think it was this dog, right? And the dog didn't really say have an owner, but the dog, every time the show would come on, the dog would be in a different place. Whether it was a kid that recently got into an accident and, you know, he wanted the child to, you know, understand that he could be loved, you know, regardless of being in a wheelchair and all of that, or, you know, getting the parents to see this child as not changing, you know, in a spiritual sense, but just in a physical sense. And then after that episode's finished, he moves on down the track and he goes on to make a difference in somebody else's life. And so it reminds me of that. A lot of times, of course, the kid and the family would want the dog to stay. Always that was the case. And he'd give them that look, you know, I would love to be here, but I've got some other work to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's what it is.
Yeah.
Even if you're the person that's doing the work within somebody else's life, or they're in your life making a change or a difference, sometimes we have to recognize that it's just for a temporary space. It's not to be around, stick around. And sometimes that's what it is. It's similar to, you know, when she had talked about, of course, you would love your child and you want your kid to be around and to be a mother, but for a temporary time, her baby lived within her, came to be, and even outside of her existence, her presence in living, she's left a legacy of a lesson that was taught. So temporary, it was pain, but look at the positivity that from that blink of a change, look at what it's left behind and how many people have benefited since because she shared that story.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to those kinds of things. And I think it's all about recognition of where you are, where you want to be, whom you want to be around you, create a circle and maintain your circle.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a huge circle. A lot of times we think the more people, the more friends, you know, the more clout that we have, the better that is. Sometimes that is totally not the case.
It's not. And a quote came up for me while you were speaking that I just wanted to share. And it says, "Everyone is my teacher. Some I seek, some I subconsciously attract. Some may be completely unaware that I'm learning from them, yet I bow deeply in gratitude." And it's the same idea we started the call with, right? It's the idea that everyone in every situation is a teacher in life if you allow it.
Absolutely.
If you allow it. And like you said, sometimes people come into our lives just to teach us a lesson and then to go, and then they need to move on
to teach some other stuff.
Yeah. And we don't see it like that, right? We see it as like, oh my God, why did this like crappy person just come into my life? But the question is, do you choose to learn from something, or do you choose to, you know, dwell on how challenging or bad of a situation it was, right? Like, that's your choice. And the other thing that was coming up for me as you were speaking is, you know, one thing that I found since I've been here is that I'm a bit of like a loner. And I don't mean a loner as in like I'm not social. I'm really social, but I don't, you know, other than my group of girlfriends that I grew up with who are still my best friends, most of whom live out in LA and then a couple others in the States, I've never really, again, been like part of a group of people. And I'm learning that with the exception of my best friends from home, I actually like it. You know, because I think that we get so tied, we wrap our identity up in, well, I'm part of this social circle. I run in this circle. Yeah. And sometimes you look around and you're like, why? Right? Like, okay, I grew up with these people. And again, I'm not referring to my best friends. I'm amazed we've stayed as close as we have, but you know, okay, I hear this a lot. Well, I grew up with these people, but I don't really even know if I came across them today, if we have anything to talk about. And my question is, you know, I get that there's a resistance because tradition and history and all these things, they play a role. But if people really aren't making you happy, why do you have to keep yourself in that situation. And it doesn't mean cutting everybody out. Maybe you have a group of 10 people and there's 4 of them you really like. Why can't you invite 1 or 2 of them out to lunch? Why can't you invite another 2 over for a
Always
movie
has
on
to
a
be the
Friday
group
night?
thing.
Why does it have to be the group thing? And I mean, really ask yourself that, because people get so tied up in it, and then they're like, well, I hate the drama that this person brings, and I hate the energy that this person brings. And I'm like, why do you keep doing it that?
Because in
know?
your mind, you say to yourself, oh, that's a part of the cellular structure. Like Becky is supposed to bring that kind of nasty stuff, and then this person neutralizes the situation. It's the role. That's how we justify it. It's the role that we all have to play. That's BS. You don't have to.
No, of course
you
not.
choose to. And a lot of times you choose to because we thrive off of foolishness.
And that, I mean, that's the thing that we have. That's where we have to, like, a lot of these conversations are about getting really honest with ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right? What are we doing? Why are we doing it? You know, is there another way to do it? And if there is, are we willing to?
I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and, you know, he said, wow, you know, I've been friends with this person from high school, like from 9th grade, we were friends, and, you know, we both have gone our separate ways. We've come back home. You know, we hang out all the time, but the more we hang out, I actually find that the less we have in common. Like, they're still into the club scene, you know, he's still, you know, he's into player mode. He want to check this girl, that girl, the next girl, or whatever. I'm looking for a wife here. Like, I'm trying to, you know, I'm in a different space. I'm looking to settle down. I want to be a dad. And, you know, he's not getting it. And I asked myself one day, I'm like, why are you still friends with this dude? Like, you know, and I keep telling myself, like, oh, but we have history. No one knows me like that. He knew me from before time and whatever. Okay, great. And it was what it was when it was, and now it's something different. And it doesn't mean that you have to never speak to him again in life. Absolutely not. You appreciate the friendship that he provided to you when you started a new school and all of that, and you were a great friend to him as well. But now you're going in different directions in life, and that's fine too. Who's to say what he should be doing or shouldn't be doing? You don't get to dictate that. But what you do get to say is, that's fine if you want to, but I choose not to be a part of that because I'm on a different
100%.
road, and that's fine. We don't do that. We don't want to separate because we're being horrible people. If you know, that's what people convince us that we're being horrible people. If we kind of draw back and we go into things of our own, we're not supposed to do that as people.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you know, as human beings, we're incredibly social beings. That's literally within our makeup.
Yeah,
we form incredibly
too.
strong bonds. And so if we look at it from that perspective, it's natural why we kind of cling to these things, why we cling to other people. At the same time, the way that we wrap up our identity in how we look, what we wear, like, you know, what our job is, we wrap our identity in with other people. And a lot of times we don't allow relationships to evolve the way they need to. Relationships, not all relationships need to be cut out, but especially if it's somebody you grew up with. We all start out in the 7th grade and we're gangly and awkward and we're starting to like boys or girls or whatever, and we're all in the same place. And once you hit a certain point, you know, maybe in your mid-20s, whatever, people evolve in different ways and at different rates.
Absolutely.
And we have to be willing to allow those relationships to change for what they are. And stop grasping so tightly, because the thing is, we think that by grasping tightly, it says something about our character, who we are, but it causes so much friction and so much internal strife. And you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? And is it helping the other person either? If you're sitting there and he's going out and trying to get girls and you're sitting there all angry at the bar, scowling, you know, is it helping anybody?
No. But it comes back to what the last bit of conversation is. So busy grasping on to what used to be that we can't see for things for what is.
Yeah.
And so the last bit is reconciling your past with your present. Healthy visitations to your past versus dwelling therein. You know, we as people seem to have a problem with the gift of letting go.
100%.
You know, and I think it's always, I see nothing wrong. Scary it is, like going into your past and looking at what used to be. You know, sometimes we even go down that very scary corridor of what if I had done things that way or this way, or if I'd kept this person around and that. I think we all do that. But I think there's a difference between, like I said, a healthy visitation of those things
Sure.
and allowing yourself to think on those lines and then dwelling in those things or the mistakes that you think you've made, which has brought you to the places where you are now. So how do we reconcile with the things that have happened in past, the lessons that we've learned, the people that we've come across, and knowing, the healthy part of, yes, it played its role. And now from my past, it has allowed me to grow and be different and possibly better in my present and what's to come. How do we reconcile what's healthy within that visiting, or how do you know if you're dwelling? Like, how do you reconcile those things so that you know that you're in a healthy space, or at least making that kind of healthy relationship between the two?
Yeah. So there's a few things coming. I feel like every time you speak ask the question, my mind is just shooting off in 18 directions.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes up for me, I agree that we are incredibly past-looking creatures, and we're incredibly forward-looking creatures, and we're incredibly not present.
Yeah, we
creatures,
forget about
right?
oh, hey, but you're here. Yeah,
Right.
we're busy there and there, but we forget we're present and we should be.
Yeah.
So how do we change that?
And so I think, there are people that would identify more deeply with the past and are always living on what happened, whatever. And then there are people like me who are always thinking about the future and getting anxiety and worrying and all of that, right? And some that are probably a combination of the both. And the thing that I always like to remember, and I have to remind myself this, especially when I start to get down in the moment, is the past always seems better than it was. We have this incredible way about remembering the good and forgetting about the bad. Not necessarily when it comes to holding grudges against certain people and things, but we look back at life and we're like, oh, remember the good old days. Well, when you were sitting there, it probably wasn't the good old days, right?
Not at
It
all.
was stressful and anxiety provoking, and you were worrying about the day that you got to today, to here, right? And the present to us, and also the future, always looks scarier or seems worse than it truly is. And so I think that first we have to kind of keep that in mind. If you keep revisiting the past, was it really as great as you're making it up to be? Because all the past is present moments strung together.
Absolutely.
Right? That's it. So that was the first place that my mind went. In terms of how do we become not past living or future living creatures. This is a huge one. I mean, this is the bulk of the work that I do as a life coach is, we create so many issues in our mind about what's going to happen in the future. You'll be in a yoga class and then, Shavasana, final resting pose comes and all you can think of is what you're going to have for dinner, right? You don't want to be, you're in the most relaxing pose with music and good smells and you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner. That's just kind of, for whatever reason, how we're programmed. And it's also what makes us such an incredible species and able to build everything that we've built as human beings. So I think part of it is understanding that is kind of our natural disposition and part of what makes us so amazing. And it also turns us into our own worst enemy. And so, there are a lot of simple techniques for mindfulness. They range so greatly. But, one of the reasons that people speak to meditation so deeply, which I'll say something about in a second, is because it is all about learning not only to be in the present moment, but also to start to learn how to control the mind. Because I'd say 99.9% of us would agree that our mind controls us. We do not control our mind. We don't know where our mind's going to go. We can't stop it from dwelling on emotions and thoughts and all these things. That's what meditation is. Now, here's the thing that I'll say about this. Meditation has become a very intimidating word for people. It's something that you have to sit down and, hum and chant to yourself for an hour a day in some language you don't know, cross-legged, uncomfortable. That's not what it is.
Right.
That can be what it is.
Yeah.
But there's thousands of forms of meditation, right? One that I love so much is finding something to be present to. So if you look at the Buddhist form of meditation, what they would say is to just close your eyes, allow your mind to go where it's going to go,
Right.
and watch it. just watch it. Just take a step back and actually watch where it wants to go. And then say, that's interesting that my mind's going there. Okay, what's the next thought? So rather than engaging with it and being part of the mind, stepping back and watching the mind. I absolutely love that one. Another one that I love that I've given to people before and I think they found really helpful is to find something as simple as if you have a pet and you like to spend time with your pets, take 5 minutes out per day and just sit there and stroke your pet or, you know, talk to it or do whatever keeps you completely engaged. Most people would be like, how is talking to your pet meditation? But it is.
Absolutely.
It is. And the thing is, we have to find ways. I mean, call it meditation, call it, call it mindfulness, call it whatever you want. But we have to find the ways that are accessible to us to find that. So doing that for 5 minutes a day does two different things. One is that it actually gives our mind a complete break from all of the stress and anxiety that we're constantly running on. So it's actually creating, these chemicals within our mind that are calming us down, tapping into what we call the parasympathetic nervous system. The other thing that it's doing is that we've actually, through a lot of research, are finding out that we can break down like neural pathways or what we might call bridges in the mind and rebuild other neural pathways. So even doing something like this 5 minutes a day, you'll start to realize that you're living in the present and you're not obsessing over the future and the past. And that when you do, you can actually bring yourself back. So it's, it might be a little bit off topic, but these are the ways. There's no way around it. You can't trick your mind into, you can sit there and be like, stop thinking, stop worrying.
Happen.
It doesn't work. We have to actually rewire the brain.
To me, I think if people can't relate to, for an example, the way that I see it is this: if you want to be more focused in your present, think of everything else that happens, whether it's the kids, whether it's grocery shopping, the dry cleaning, whatever it is, right? Picture that as the ocean, as far and vast and as wide as it is.
Yeah.
And think of your mind as kind of a sailboat, right? And so, of course, the sailboat is designed to visit those vast places, but it's always supposed to come back to dock. Find your place home.
Yeah.
So think of meditation or being present in your moment with spending time with your pet or sitting in your garden, whether it's sipping your tea or a cold glass of Moet,
Sounds way better.
whatever. I just caught that taste. Whatever it is in that simple space and time, think of that as your way of tying back onto dock.
Yeah.
And just being present. Not to say that you're not allowed to visit those vast places, but you always have to come back home.
Of course.
Be present. And I think that's an excellent way for us to kind of bundle things in. One of the big things that resonated for me was someone, WhatsApp. And she said that is like something just clicked. Something just clicked because it's like, she said she was holding on. Let me see if I got it. Yeah, she was holding on to this relationship with this ex, right? Kept going back and forward and back and forward and always letting her back into her life. And then she really thought about it, like, the relationship wasn't that good. But she made it sound, oh my God, the first time we were together. I think we've all done it, right?
We all do
the
it.
first
Sure.
time we were together and like my first love, and we went this place, that place. And we put like a wall up to all of the nasty things that brought us to that X factor to begin with. And we tend to do that with a lot of the experiences that happen within our past. We choose, like you said, to make it nice because it's always better to go back to a nice place, right? We tend not to want to think about those things that happened, why we had to leave that situation in the past to begin with.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I agree, it's about really making the decision to be honest with yourself.
Sure.
And I think that will make, the most crucial differences in your life. Sometimes you won't even want to dwell within the past the way they used to because you're able to see it for exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing me what you showed me.
Yeah.
Thank you for teaching me what you taught me. And I'm allowed because of those things to now able to enjoy the present that I worked so hard to get to.
Exactly. Yeah.
No problem with future. I don't want anybody to get it twisted. I think future is so important. I think if a lot of our forefathers were not thinking futuristically, we would not have the advances in so many things that we do
100%.
and the opportunities. So I definitely appreciate that. But can you imagine if they forgot and got lost in those futuristic things and forgot to live their present?
Mhm.
A
Yeah.
lot of the legacy would have been left or lost,
Yeah.
you know?
And future looking is an amazing thing when we're talking about, dreams and innovations and all of these things. But most of us live future in worry. Most of us
Yes,
live future
Lord.
in anxiety.
Yes.
And
So can we
that's-
change how we see? Is that the problem? Can we just see the future as somewhere that can be pretty awesome? And if we work towards like our present, like, because we're living the future, we're living future now. If you really look at it, 5 minutes ago was our past.
Yeah.
5 minutes ago to the second was our present.
Mhm.
And if you look at it that way, we're living futuristically right now.
Yeah.
So choose to moment to moment. Future doesn't have to be so far away, but if you don't put in the building blocks right now,
Mhm.
what do you have to go forward to?
Yeah, and I find a lot of people, it's not always the case, but a lot of people when they worry about the future, they say, "What future are you worried about?
Mhm.
Are you worried about your long-term future?" And they'll say, "No, I think in the end I'll be fine."
Of
And then I'll say, "Okay, are you worried about this week, next week?" And they'll say, "No, I'm okay right now." And then I'll say, "Okay, what is it? Your medium-term future?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I think a lot of people struggle with that, but it's the same exact thing you're talking about. It's a day at a time. Every single day that you live, tomorrow, the next day, it's making up this path to this medium-term future, right? And so I think it's just about putting it in perspective, and really just tuning into, do I have to, catastrophize? Do I have to make it this big thing that's going to go wrong? Or can I just set myself up on a path, right? Align with myself, cut the people, the things, everything out one day at a time that aren't working, and then just move toward this path that I want to be on.
Mhm. I think that's all that we need to say.
Yeah.
I think that's an awesome lesson that we can walk away with. And I'm hoping that a lot of people listened in, and I don't mean heard, I mean like listened
Yeah.
and really got what it is that we put forward today. Thank you for all of you that wrote in, that responded via Facebook as well as WhatsApp. And always, it's been a pleasure, and we definitely look forward to you coming back again, because it's always such great conversations and wonderful lessons to be learned. That's it for us. This has been Love Jones, past, present, reflections, and everything in between. Great things to be had, and I hope that you walked away with something beautiful. I know that I have. We're looking forward to the next time. Keep it right. We've got it. We've got more great music on the best mix of R&B music, home of the Steve Harvey Morning Show. Of course, thank you to our Facebook watchers. You can watch the video again. We'll post it on all of the respective sites, and of course, you can continue the conversation by becoming a friend on Facebook of Love Jones Crew, as well as writing in at 431-8497 or 812-1787. That's it. Enjoy the rest of...